You're one of the worst attorney generals in our history and an instrument of Donald Trump's lawless authoritarian agenda, and I'm glad the American people are seeing who you are, how you act, and the lack of good values. You weaponize the Department of Justice to target immigrants, working families, and anyone that Trump deems an enemy of the state, all to protect real powerful criminals, including in your administration. My Democratic colleagues have focused on your cover-up of the Epstein files and your passion for protecting pedophiles and child traffickers. That alone is grounds for impeachment. But there's so much more to your corrupt tenure as Attorney General. You directed prosecutors to investigate elected officials in welcoming jurisdictions, and you got thrown out of court when you sued Chicago, Cook County, and Illinois. You directed prosecutors to prioritize low-level immigration cases while gutting enforcement against corporate criminals and public corruption. You revived draconian law of 1798, which should be repealed to illegally send people to a torture prison in El Salvador. You fired over 100 immigration judges, including the assistant chief immigration judge in Chicago, without cause, and installed unqualified military judges whom you instructed to deny asylum in violation of the law. You prosecute the president's enemies like Jim Comey and Tish James while giving impunity to federal agents who are murdering and brutalizing and terrorizing constituents, including in Chicagoland, in my neighborhood. I saw it last year firsthand. You and Kash Patel covered up the murder of Silverio Villegas Gonzalez in my district by ICE agents. You tried to investigate Renee Good instead of the ICE agent who murdered her, and you tried to cover up the murder of Alex Peretti by CBP agents. You bring fake charges against protesters like the Broadview Six and Marimar Martinez, whom your administration labeled a domestic terrorist. This is the Montessori teacher who lives in my district, while protecting thugs who terrorize us and DHS authority. That's what you do. Protect and enable the criminals who are plundering our society and destroying what's left of democracy and the rule of law.
The hearing didn't even feel like a hearing anymore. It felt like a full political indictment being read out loud in real time. He continued by listing more names, accusing the Department of Justice of protecting people like Tom Homan, Eric Adams, and others, while claiming the administration was turning the country into what he called an authoritarian gangster state. But then he said something that really stood out to me. He said the opposition to Pam Bondi wasn't just coming from Democrats. He claimed even conservative judges were criticizing the Department of Justice under her leadership, and that prosecutors were quitting because they were being forced to prosecute low-level immigration cases. He even claimed that Trump's own base was angry with her over the Epstein files, and then he said something that changed the mood in the room. He said that even Donald Trump himself had complained about Pam Bondi, calling her weak and ineffective. By this point, the entire room felt politically charged. He ended by saying that Chicago and the American people rejected her, and that Democrats should impeach and remove officials like her and Kristi Noem. Then he told her she should resign and submit herself to accountability. After he finished, he submitted a Wall Street Journal article into the record that reportedly said Trump had complained about Pam Bondi repeatedly to his aides. But the hearing didn't calm down after that.
Epstein accomplices, mass DHS thugs, corporate criminals, Tom Homan, Eric Adams, insurrectionists, the list goes on. And you talk about fighting crime, but you protect any criminal who helps you and Trump turn our country into an authoritarian gangster state. And after all this, nobody supports you. I'm not talking about Democrats, I'm talking about conservative judges who are condemning the rampant lawlessness at DOJ under your leadership. Your prosecutors are quitting in droves over being forced to prosecute low-level immigration cases, including in Chicagoland. Your MAGA base despises you because you're covering up the Epstein file. How ironic. And even your own boss has repeatedly complained to your staff about you, calling you weak and ineffective. Weak and ineffective. That's what Donald Trump thinks of you already. You will not win, however. Chicagoland rejects you. The American people reject you. Our communities have demonstrated our strength and resilience in the face of cruelty and cowardice. Democrats must impeach and remove lawless officials like you and Kristi Noem and impose accountability for every criminal action. But you can spare yourself more humiliation. Resign now and submit yourself to accountability by the American people. Mr. Chairman, before I yield back, I ask unanimous consent to submit for the record this Wall Street Journal article dated January 12, 2026, entitled, "Trump has complained about Pam Bondi repeatedly to aides."
A congresswoman from Texas and spoke briefly and brought up the fact that the Illinois congressman was not running for office again, mentioning his chief of staff, Patty Garcia, and suggesting that some of the issues he was raising were state matters, not federal ones. And as I watched this entire exchange, once again, it was clear to me that this hearing was no longer just about policy or oversight. It had turned into a full political battle, with accusations of corruption, abuse of power, cover-ups, and political retaliation being thrown back and forth in front of the entire country. By the end of this exchange, it felt less like a congressional hearing and more like a political war playing out live on camera.